Hey there everybody, welcome to the channel. This is a little intro for the 180-600 complete review. So in the video you'll see all the different videos from the past 10 months, and we'll have a little timeline down here so you can skip through it and get the parts you want unless you want to watch the whole thing. And then also I have affiliate links down below for Amazon and Adorama if you're interested in purchasing any of the equipment used in the video. And in the video we're going to talk about lens covers, we're going to talk about full frame APS-C cameras, how they perform on it, teleconverters, sharpness comparison between the 150-600 contemporary and the 180-600 Nikon, and pretty much everything in between. If you've already seen all my videos up to this point on the 180-600, you could skip this video, not a big deal. But if you want to watch it all in one place, you found the right thing to watch. That way you don't have to skip around to 10 different videos and waste all that time. We will go in chronological order from the very beginning to the very end, and we'll have a couple different cameras in here testing it on. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So it has finally arrived through NPS. I got my Nikon 180-600 and we're just going to unwrap it and see how it looks. Sure is a lot of extra packaging. Wrapped in bubble wrap. So here we are. Here's the box, the 180-600. Now I've been waiting for this lens for probably, I don't know, 2 years now. It's been on the roadmap for longer for the Nikon Z series lenses. I never thought it would actually appear. So let's see what we got in the box. Well, here's the lens hood. 95mm lens hood. Yeah, typical lens hood. Smells like crayons. It's got the little clicker on it, like how the 70-200 lenses have, so that's nice. It's not really a bayonet that can fall off super easy. Just a really big lens cloth, I guess. And I apologize if the audio isn't the best or the video isn't the best. We just got back from driving 7 hours home on vacation for a week, so it's been a very long day. I guess that's the manual. Not going to read that. It's a lens, nothing special about a lens. Warranty card. See, this is what's kind of annoying though. It's kind of sad. Nikon used to give you 5-year warranty for a lot of things on lenses. Now you only get a 1-year warranty on lenses. So last I knew, could be wrong, Sigma and Tamron were offering 5-year warranties on their lenses still. So maybe they're not doing that anymore, but last I heard they still were. Okay, so let's get the lens out. Also wrapped in bubble wrap. Okay, so here we go. Oh, much nicer lens foot than I was expecting. It's got 2 different sized holes, threaded holes, as you can see. But that is a much bigger, nicer grip than what I'm used to. Programmable buttons all the way around. It's only one button, so whenever you rotate your camera, you at least have access to the same button. Pinch lens cap. Pristine clean. Got a piece of plastic here on the switches. Got a little spot if you want to put a tether on there. Loosen this so you can rotate it. To get it off, you loosen it all the way and then just clamshells open. Doesn't have any weird indents on it from the collar. Doesn't look too bad without the collar. Oh, look at that. This lens says it was made in China. So, that's kind of unexpected to me, but I mean, it's whatever, nothing I can do about that. I was expecting Taiwan or Japan or somewhere else, but whatever. And it says the minimum focus distance is 1.3 meters or 4.27 feet. Put the collar back on here. Now, this is obviously not an S lens, but I think it looks pretty darn nice. Put the hood on and see how that looks. Doesn't feel as heavy as I was expecting since it's an internal zoom lens. See, look at that. Check it. That's all it takes, 180 to 600. That's crazy. Like no turn whatsoever. Take the hood off, press down on the button. The edge of the lens has a little rubber gasket so you can put it face down. The hood itself does not have any rubber on the outside though. Not a huge deal, just something to point out. This is what I will be using going forward. And this is what I have been using for about almost 7 years. So here we have the Sigma 150 to 600 Contemporary on the F mount. It currently has the FTZ adapter on it. And as you can see the difference, whenever it's at 180 millimeters, 3/4 of an inch or so in height, length, whatever you want to call it. To make it a fair comparison, we'll put the Contemporary's lens flip on real quick. Now I have an aftermarket Kirk plate on here, so it's ARCA compatible on the Sigma. The Nikon is not ARCA compatible at all, so you're going to have to put a plate on there, which isn't a big deal. Let's put this one over here, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'll put a longer one on. Maybe I won't put anything on there, because I use lens rails now, and I don't really use ARCA on the lens. So yeah, 180, and then we'll zoom this out to 600. Then you can see the Contemporary is much, much taller, but the Contemporary has a lot more switches on it. So on the Nikon, you only got autofocus and manual. Then you have your full distance and infinite to 6 meters. Kind of an interesting build here, but this is going to be so much nicer to carry around than this. Yeah. Super excited. Can't wait to try this thing out. And soon enough, I'm going to do a video comparing these two lenses. Pros, cons, statistics, focusing speeds, sharpness, all that jazz. So please subscribe to the channel and check that out when it's ready. On Monday, we're going to the Cleveland National Airshow, and I will be taking the new 180 to 600 with me. And then after the show, I'm going to do a little montage video and do some pixel peeping on the, the images I get off of it, to see how sharp it feels compared to the old Sigma that I've had for about 6 or 7 years. And then eventually this Sigma is going to go on eBay, and I think currently I'm probably going to sell it around $700, $750, because I do have the Sigma dock to sell with it as well. So if you're interested in buying my Sigma, please send me an email. My email contact information is down below in the description. I am just, I'm so excited about this. Like, this is going to be the bee's knees. So yeah, subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment down below what your expectations are of the new lens. My Apache case just fell over. And I'll see you next time. Happy shooting out there. I'll see you. Hey there everybody, welcome to the channel. We got our first outing with the new Nikon 180 to 600 and it was definitely no slouch. It was super enjoyable to use. Had the strap for about 5 years. If you want to see a review on that, go check it out. I'll put a link up above. First thoughts after using this for an air show in Cleveland. Initially, nice thing about it is the switches are a little more recessed than on the Sigma, so that you won't bump them and accidentally change it from autofocus to manual. So that was a nice surprise. And the lens foot is so much bigger that even with the BlackRapid strap on here, you can hold it and this doesn't really get in the way, unlike on the Sigma, it was always in. And the short throw made it super easy and quick to switch between different airplanes during performances. The lens gets super hot in the sun. Like, it wasn't like, you know, burning your hand or anything, but it definitely became uncomfortable to hold. And just for reference, it was blue skies and sunny out, about 90 degrees. Future, I might put some kind of skin on here from Avgard, not really sure yet. The Z9 has a green skin on it, and it doesn't look too bad, but I kind of just wish it was just white, to be honest, just a black and white skin. So here in a second, we're going to get into some photos, videos, before and after editing, stabilization, all that stuff. We'll just make it quick and simple. That way you don't have to sit here and spend and watch, you know, an hour video and gain nothing. And for what it's worth, it does fit in my V20 retrospective camera bag. So it fits in there nice with it not being attached to the camera. So we'll just get to the EVF part, and I'll show you some examples from the ZCam IP Man Gemini. Just showing you how the EVF fared with the lens, putting the camera in vehicle detection and auto area. It pretty much went right to the cockpit or the front of the aircraft in most situations, but never really let go of the aircraft. So that was kind of to be expected, to be honest, but I just thought these would be some clips that people might want to see, and generally they seem to be pretty popular. And it shows you the exposure settings I'm using as well, the different photo and video. And you can tell when I'm taking a video whenever there is a red box around the outline of the EVF. Also, turning on vehicle detection and turning off people detection let you just ignore everyone around you, so you weren't worried about the camera jumping to something close like a person's head or something. So when it comes to handheld video, we're going to give a couple examples before stabilization and after. Then we have planar tracker stabilization and resolve done, so you can see how that worked out. And then we'll have a segment here just showing it fully edited, color corrected, full 9 yards on that. And then the second example is going to be a brake on the Thunderbirds as they flew out of their formation. And just a quick note here, it is nice to see that the stabilization in the lens works really well with the IBIS. It is not as jerky, it's a lot more smooth. The EVF stays nice and smooth, it doesn't bounce all over the place. And the video doesn't have a whole lot of jitters in it when you go to stabilize it. And just as a note, I shot this whole thing in VR sport mode, and you have to select that in camera. There's no VR switch on the lens. Then we have the Resolve Studio Stabilize with the planar tracker, and a little bit of regular stabilization tossed in there with perspective. And then the final edit, just to show how it looks after a little bit of color correction, raising some shadows and highlights and all that jazz. The next thing I was really looking forward to seeing how it worked was for panning on subjects for slow shutter speeds. Now I want to do this more with ducks and obviously racing, sport bikes, you know, motor cars, all that stuff. But this is going to be something I'm going to try and implement also into aviation. So the first example we have is just blurring the props on a C-130. You can see as we pass through, the exposure comes up on the bottom, and they're all pretty tack sharp. And for the most part, I would say I easily got 30 to 40% of the shots nice, stabilized, and sharp using Sport VR. But when we go in here and we pixel peep real close at 100%, you can see some of them are a little bit blurry, some of them aren't super sharp, but some are really, really sharp. But for the most part, a lot of these are easily going to pass for being sharp. So if you want to go tack sharp. Like if this picture's perfect, I'd say maybe 10%, 15%, but completely usable, easily 30 to 40% of your shots. In another example, we have a Coast Guard helicopter here, shot at a little bit slower shutter speed, hit a further zoom on the lens, as the C-130 was 200 millimeters, this one's 600, and the helicopter was going a little bit slower. It also takes a slower shutter speed to blur the main rotor. But as we do pixel peep this as well, you can see some are a little bit better than others, but for the most part, this whole series is completely usable. If you want, to worry more on having a perfect sharp image, you're definitely going to get a couple at 1/125th of a second. And it also comes down to, are you better at holding the camera than me, or are you worse than holding the camera than me? It just comes down to your personal skills as well, not just the lens and the camera doing it for you. So some people might have a higher hit rate or a lower hit rate, but I can tell you right now, I can definitely see a difference between the new Nikon lens and the old Sigma Contemporary on the FTZ adapter. And just some bonus tip here at the end, I kind of learned this the other day, not on purpose, is as you can see, I took a whole bunch of pictures of this F-18 passing by, going almost Mach 1, and I did not keep the plane dead center. So what happened was, I missed a little bit of the plane here, a little bit there, got some here, got some there. So I did a panorama stitch by selecting all the images, and then whenever I did the panorama, it gave me a whole plane, which was super cool. And honestly, I think it was worth it. Just trying to do a pan of a plane, because you made a mistake, but it was easily to fix. So when it comes to my final thoughts on the lens for the first time out, there was a lot of vapor in the air. It was very humid. It was 90 degrees. A lot of jet exhaust was coming off certain planes, like the Harrier, so it kind of made the images a little ripply, a little wavy, just from the heat. And it was kind of hard to judge sharpness with all that atmospheric conditions. But overall, I would say that this lens is still sharper than the Sigma, but at this point it's hard to tell how much of a percentage that is. It's more of a gut feeling at this point. But coming up here, we're going to do a comparison between the Nikon and the Sigma, and we're going to have probably, I want to say 7 to 10 different categories. And we'll try to run some check marks on it and do real world testing and examples. And coming up soon, in the next week or so, I should be receiving a new camera. I ordered a ZFC to do my B-roll footage, talking head like this. That way I can hold the Z9 and show examples of using lenses and stuff. So that's going to be super helpful in the upcoming comparison video. But if you have any questions about the air show, anything I missed on the lens for air shows or aviation, even wildlife, comment down below. And like the video, subscribe to the channel, really appreciate that. Hit the bell notification so you don't miss the next comparison video between the Sigma and the Nikon. Hey there everybody, welcome to the channel. We're going over how to mount your long telephoto lens. Now I've already done a video this a couple years ago, but this is going to be a lot more updated and a little easier to follow, I believe, with newer hardware involved. So let's say you got your new Nikon 180-600 here and you want to do some video or even photo. Now I highly recommend that you use a fluid head for this and not a gimbal head. Personally, I think fluid heads are far more efficient and easier to use for this. You can balance the lens on it up and down, left, right, all that stuff, and then you never have to touch it again. And if you carry your lens on a shoulder strap, like a BlackRapid, like what I use, all you gotta do is take that off, and then you can just leave this bit on there. It's not a big deal. And I want to add in that everything that I show here will have links in the description if you want to check it out or purchase any of it through Amazon, and I much appreciate that. It gives the channel a little bit of a kickback. So the first thing you're going to need is a fluid head. Here I have my 504X from Manfrotto, and this is obviously just the center column for my tripod that I'll show you shortly. And the equipment that you're going to need, and I buy all this from Small Rig mostly because it's just affordable and it does what it needs to do, is you're going to need a camera cage. So here's my Z9 camera cage. All these things I've already done a review on, so if you see something you're interested in, just search on the channel and you'll find it. I also highly recommend a screw set from Small Rig. That way you have extra screws, because honestly you're going to need it. This is the plate that comes with the fluid head. Now this is not Arca Swiss, so you need to adapt this to Arca Swiss so that it fits what you need. And here is an Arca clamp that will adapt it to Arca. And it's pretty well used, as you can see. On my part, I've used this a lot. It's pretty scuffed up. Still works great though. This is what actually is going to hold the front of the lens. This cool little Y riser. Now this is the taller riser, and you're going to want that if you have a camera that has a built-in grip like a Z9. If you have a smaller camera, like say a ZFC or a Z50, a Z30, etc., or maybe even like a Z6 without a grip, you're probably still going to want this taller riser, and instead of just using this base clamp, you can get a clamp that also has a riser built into it, so that you can raise this up and clip it to the bottom of the camera. Then here's the base plate that gets clamped to the plate that comes from the tripod. Pretty simple. Your rods go in here. I'll show you all that in a second. Then here's your rods. Pretty simple. They're 12-inch aluminum rods from Small Rig. And then we'll move over here and show you how to put it all together. Super simple. Don't worry. First thing you got to do when you get your tripod, you got to pick a nice sturdy tripod. This is the Benro TMA47AXL. It holds like 50 pounds, so it's not going anywhere. And then you have to attach your nice new fluid head to the center post. Drop that down in there and align it with the key. Okay, now you got your fluid head on there, you're ready to assemble the rest. Okay, so the mistake you're going to do is you want to put this on the tripod plate first. You don't want to do that. Take your clamp that holds the rods, and then you want to put your Arca plate on top of it. It will sit like this. You want the clamp to be in the back so that it's easy to get to. And to do this, you're going to want to use a 4mm Allen key. You're going to want to use the domed, recessed one for the top. And just to show you, I'm screwing it into this right here. Not the big hole, the second hole from the bottom. So now that that's started, leave it kind of loose. You're going to go through the bottom. There's a slotted hole right here. So you're going to put your second screw through the bottom into a hole that's right here under the lip. It's kind of hard to see and explain, but when you look from underneath you'll see it kind of lines up. You got to make sure that your latch is on the back above the Small Rig logo. Then just go and tighten it all down. So now you got that built and put together. Now you can place this on the foot that comes with the tripod head. Kit of hardware, it comes with a little flathead screwdriver kind of thing. Same thing, make sure you pay attention which way the arrow points, because it tells you it goes one direction. Make sure you got that pointed forward like this. You put 2 screws in the bottom. To put them in, all you got to do is just drop them in the hole and slide down. And there's 2 holes right here. That's what we're screwing them into. That's why you got to put that clamp on top first, because you won't be able to reach it once you put these on. Before you tighten it all the way, you can see you can slide it forward and backward. Since it's such a big lens and a heavy camera for me, I like having this all the way at the back so that I can slide it further back off the tripod for a little bit more counterbalance. And you just set it on top, crank it down. We'll just tighten everything down so it doesn't go anywhere. So here you go. Now you got the base completed. The rest of this is pretty simple. Just take your rods. You got to loosen these little clamps on the side. Stick your rod in there. Clamp it down. Stick the one in on the other side. Clamp that down. Make them the same length. Now you got your rods on there. And here we have our vertical support. Always have this facing forward so you can easily reach this. This is kind of a pain to reach if you have it backwards, so always have it facing forwards. Just goes right on the rods and slides back and forth. So if you want to use your 200 600-ish lens, you put it way out here. If you want to use a 70 to 200, you can put it right here, so you can adjust it as needed for whatever lens you want to use. So when it comes to the camera you put on here, for the Z9 it works best if you put it in a cage, so it can clamp right into this dovetail Arca Swiss here and be ready to go. So here's the camera, and here's the cage. Put it on. I did a review on all this stuff, like I said, so if you find something you want to look more into, look on the channel, you'll find it, or I'll put flags up above and you'll see it. It has 3 different mounting points. It has one right here with a 2.5mm screw. Then it has your tripod socket in the bottom, and it has a locking screw down here. Then it has a built-in flathead screwdriver if you need one. Just slides right in. Take your screwdriver out and just tighten it in. Not all cameras will have the second locking spot right here, but if you can, always have more than one spot where a camera is attached. That's why everything has at least 2 places that is anchored on here. Makes it a little bit more sturdy. And then we have the tiny little 2.5 screw on the top. Honestly, I don't really know what this does, but I guess this extra support. There you go. Now you got your cage attached. You're ready to go. Got to put the lens on. Now you can leave the foot at the bottom if you want. I like rolling it up to the top so it's out of the way. Less stuff to worry about when you're trying to adjust your rails. And the bottom of this cage has Arca Swiss on there, so you just drop it in there, clamp it in, and then just raise this up to the lens. Now you're good to go. That's it. So if you found this interesting, please like the video, comment down below. If you would ever use a system like this, it's super useful, trust me. It's even great for photo, I guarantee that. And it's far superior to anything that you would use with a gimbal, like that old school gimbal stuff that people use with their long telephoto lenses. And this whole setup with the camera and the lens is probably like, I'm spitballing here, maybe like 7 pounds. So, works really nice for that. And as you can see, it's starting to get to be hoodie weather. It's getting a little chilly out. So if you're interested in some MWP hoodies or t-shirts, down below in the description, there's a link to my Bonfire website where you can order these from. And I believe it's international, so you can check that out. Hey there everybody, welcome to the channel. We got some cool stuff to talk about today. We're going to compare the Nikon 180-600 to the Sigma 150-600 contemporary on the F mount. And this is going to have the FTZ2 adapter on it. Now, the FTZ2 and FTZ1, there's really nothing different except for ergonomics on it so that it fits and works well with the ergonomics of the Z9. And the first thing you'll notice is the lens hoods are a little different. Nothing super crazy with that. But the Sigma, the lens hood, you just twist off. It's just a regular bayonet. So sometimes it's pretty easy to bump this in your camera bag, or you're walking around and it hits a tree or something or a rock and spins a little bit and it just falls right off. That's definitely not ideal, but it happens. On the Nikon, it's like there's 70-200, there's a push button right here. You gotta push the button and then it will unlock and come off. So there's no way to accidentally have it come off when you don't want it to. And it works the same when it's installed reversed or normal. And also, the Nikon has the programmable function buttons all the way around the lens. But the Sigma doesn't have any of that. It has all the switches right here at the base. And one of the cool things that I noticed about using the new Nikon lens is they are recessed basically by your grip. So if you're walking along, you're not going to accidentally bump the switches with your hip or anything else, and you go pick the camera up, take some pictures, and suddenly now your lens is on manual focus instead of autofocus for some reason. Both lenses have removable tripod feet you can take off and put back on. Nothing really unique there. When it comes to weight, the Nikon is a little bit heavier than the Sigma, but it is completely weather sealed front to back, and the Sigma only has weather sealing at the mount. And whenever you put the adapter on there, I don't 100% trust the adapter to actually have full weather sealing on there. And of course, it's a external zoom, so you could, suck up some moisture or rain, debris into the barrel that way. Hood's off so we can compare what the actual lens looks like. Both lenses are 95mm threads, so same size on the outside. And they both have a rubber gasket on the top so that you can place them upside down on tables. Now, when it comes to area that takes up in your bag or on the shelf or anywhere you store your lenses, obviously the Sigma is going to be a bit smaller. Not a ton, but it'll be a bit smaller. Now, when we put the adapter on there, it kind of takes away the smallness factor. It's not a bad zoom to extend, and you could also push-pull it if you really wanted to. But on the Nikon, you have a nice little focus wheel here that goes so smooth, like just one finger and it'll turn. And it doesn't have to turn that far. That's all you do from min to max. And I put a little spreadsheet up to show you the differences between the new Nikon, the Sigma Contemporary, the Sigma Sport, the Tamron G2, and the Sony, and some other lenses to kind of give you the broad idea of just where the specs fall for the new Nikon. So other than the outside bits, let's get to the more interesting stuff, the different things that I tested and compared. So something that most of you probably already know is DSLR lenses on an adapter on at least Nikon make some hellish ruckus whenever you're trying to use autofocus specifically in video. So here we did a little comparison, just recording the sound from the Nikon and Sigma to show you how the autofocus sounds. None of the audio was adjusted, there's no EQ added, no volume added or subtracted, that's just straight from the shotgun mic on top of the Z9. So this is probably going to be the most popular segment. We're going to do near to far of autofocus with both lenses. First, you're going to see the Nikon at 180mm near to far, and I was just targeting the monitor on top of the ZFC, and I'm just going forward to backward and min to max. And then also on the Nikon at 600mm near to far, it's not quite as good, so I had to use wide area large to kind of help it out. And sometimes I did have to bump the manual focus wheel. So with the Sigma at 150mm near to far, switch out the lens. As you can see, it does pretty decent, but it definitely doesn't feel as snappy as the Nikon does. And at 600mm near to far, it does autofocus by itself from near to far without touching the manual focus wheel. So that's nice. So then we'll just do a comparison so you can see how much snappier the Nikon was at near to far focusing. And then this is also the same near to far focusing, but at 600mm. So the next interesting difference between the two lenses is minimum focus distance. And we're going to show a picture of a flower taken from minimum focus distance for both lenses. Obviously, minimum focus distance is going to be a little bit further away on the Nikon whenever you're at 600mm, but when you're at 180, it's like 0.25 reproduction ratio, so that's like super cool. Can kind of fall in for being a temporary macro lens if that's what you need to use it for. And the minimum focus distance for the Nikon is 4.27 feet, which is pretty crazy, but it's 180mm. But as you can see, you can fill the frame rather well with this 2 to 3 inch wide flower. Now when you use the Sigma and you put that on there and you try it out, and then I did shoot a test subject taped to the wall. It was a graph so you could test sharpness from the center and on the sides of the image. And we'll just let this play through because personally this is not my favorite thing to look at. But after looking through this and comparing at f6.3 and then at f9, the Nikon was certainly sharper on the outside of the lens, and in the center it had a little bit better, more contrast to it, but it wasn't anything hugely different. But like I said, on the outside of the image, it was definitely sharper, more contrast as well. comes to handheld video, this is important for me because I do a lot of handheld video, especially in the kayak, so I was pretty interested in seeing how this was going to work out. So as you can see, we're holding the Nikon here, doing a little handheld video, and this is the image I got out of it. Not too bad, it was nice and sharp. This is just standard VR, this isn't sport VR. Then we'll switch over to the Sigma, and then we'll zoom out to 600 to match what I did with the Nikon. And it's definitely a little more shaky, a little more bumpy. And then whenever it comes to internal versus external zoom, this is where it really matters, is when you put your camera on a tripod. And even if you're doing photo and you're using a gimbal, it's going to be night and day for you, because you won't have to readjust your tripod head every time you change your focus. The lens foot comparison, this is pretty easy. The Nikon has a 1/4 20 and a 3/8 16 on the foot, and then whenever we get to the Nikon, it only has a single 1/4 20, so you're going to need a different plate on there if you want to make sure it doesn't twist on your tripod. So initially here we got our high-end tape measure, it's been calibrated, we're good to go. As we can see, the Nikon and Sigma are about 2 inches different with the hood reversed. And then with the hood on, we're looking at still about 2-inch difference. But whenever we zoom out to 600 millimeters, the Nikon's still going to be the same, 16 1/4 inches long, and then the Sigma is going to go out to about 18. Then it comes to fitting in the Think Tank 36-liter backlight bag. They both fit just as expected, nice and snug, but just to show you how much more room the lengthwise of the Nikon will take up. So whenever it comes down to the final thoughts here, this is kind of a no-brainer in my opinion, looking at all the different aspects of both lenses, that there's no reason why someone should not upgrade to the Nikon 180-600, especially if you are using a Sigma 150-600 contemporary. And in the future, whenever Amazon releases it to be purchased, I'm going to put a link in the description for a Nikon 180-600. So if you want to support the channel and you've enjoyed the video, please use my link down below. It gives me a little bit of a percentage kickback, and all that income goes directly back into the channel, which is why I'm able to record on a Nikon ZFC now for a second camera, not having to use the Z9, and I don't have to use a GoPro or a cell phone anymore. So if you've enjoyed the video and it kind of helps you understand where the new Nikon 180-600 stands in the telephoto affordable range, please like the video, comment down below what your expectations are for this lens if you plan on buying it yourself and upgrading, and subscribe to the channel. And you might want to have to hit the gym if you want to use one of these with a Z9. Till next time, wish you the best of luck. I'll see you out there. Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. Some cool stuff I got in the mail lately. It is a lens cover for the 180-600. Looks pretty nice to me. This is from YureCam in Australia. As you can see, it comes with a nice little box. And it has a little description on the back that I'll read to you real quick. It says a superior water repellent treatment on the material. It's 2.5mm thick neoprene bump protection, and the edges are piped with overlocking stitching for durability. And it also has a little diagram on the back where it shows you how to install it, which piece, and what order. which is super cool because you start putting it together on this end and slide the pieces down over the lens. Works really nice. And if you have any issues and you're like me and you didn't see this diagram because you were in a hurry and excited, you can go on their YouTube channel on YureCam, and then you can watch a little video about putting it together. And also it does come with instructions in the box as well. The installation took 10 minutes, probably a little quicker after you do it once or twice, or if you've already done it on another lens. Put it on the right way, like that. So this is what it looks like when you got it all together on your camera. Now, I've already used this in some pretty heavy downpour rain, and it did keep the camera pretty dry. Underneath all these little pieces, there's a rubber backing that kind of absorbs and holds the moisture so it doesn't get on your lens, which is pretty nice when you're out there and you have, you know, a sudden downpour you were not expecting, and you don't have, you know, your huge rain fly that you would normally use. It does come with a separate piece. You can see here that if you want to take the lens foot off, this piece goes right on there like that, takes up the gap. I always use my lens foot, not because I use it on a tripod or anything, just because it makes it nice to hold and carry. Now, it does come with a little piece that's like a Velcro loop, slides over the lens foot like that. There's a little hole right here for the knob of the lens foot, and then just kind of wraps around like that, so that it covers your lens foot and covers the ring itself. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of that, because if you're holding this thing, it kind of doesn't really lock into your hands. Like, I'm squeezing that really good, and it still rotates all over in my hand. So I just take that off. I don't really like using that. And for everybody wondering, this is the Realtree MX5 pattern. Pretty cool. It's on the foot on mine, at least. It might be on yours somewhere else, depending on what pattern they cut. And it does have 2 holes in it for, you know, getting to the threads on the tripod foot, so they're not like blocking you off from that. I'm not a big fan of having this ring right here on top of the manual focus. It's kind of hard to find whenever you got all these different rings on here from the pattern, from the lens cover. So what I'll probably do is just take that right off right now. Super easy. There. Adjust my other bits here real quick, kind of messed them all up doing that. Okay, so there. Now we got our manual focus, easy to grab. And I like it like this because then you can easily feel the knurling on it, where it's at. You put these on your camera so that you can protect your lens, and so it blends in whenever you're in the bush or in the blind. And hopefully wildlife and animals don't you know, get super spooked out by having a giant black lens pointing at them. Maybe they think it's a big log. I don't know, that's just hopeful speculation. But it also really helps with having a thermal barrier between like a cold or warm lens, depending on the you know, atmospheric conditions in the environment. So if you hold this with a bare hand, it doesn't feel cold, it doesn't feel hot. It feels nice and thick, a little bit of cushion on there. I also realized while carrying this on my hip on the BlackRapid like this, it had like extra cushion whenever it was bouncing on my hip whenever I was walking or hiking, so that was a nice added benefit I did not actually think about. And of course, you know, you have access to all your programmable buttons on your lens. And some people will say, oh well, Roland Pro's better than this, which I've seen comments about that already, and I've looked into Roland Pro, and it's literally it's not a soft neoprene exterior. It's I don't know if I'd call it a vinyl. Maybe it's a vinyl with like a little bit of like a rubber undercoat on it so it grips onto your lens. But they all, that I've seen, they've all had, they're not rings like this. They're not rings like this that slide over your lens for the most part. A couple of pieces are for like the lens hood and stuff, but the rest are just like long strips with Velcro underneath, so you have like a line of Velcro underneath the lens. And to me, that doesn't really sound like it'd be very comfortable. But also, if it's a vinyl exterior on the lens, it's not going to absorb any moisture to keep it, dry while you're hand holding, and it's not going to be very comfortable to hold when it's wet. Then you have the more expensive lens coat. That's a brand, not just a name, a generic name. Theirs is a lot more expensive than this. Theirs are $120, $130, and they generally go on the same way as this, except for on some of theirs, most of theirs, instead of these little cutouts for your switches, there's like a plastic window that goes over that, and I've seen a lot of reviewers say that's kind of like a pain to flip the switches because of the plastic window. You can't really grab them too well. And a lot of them have mentioned that after about a year, the edges of the parts start fraying or falling apart. So we'll do another, a year later review in 2024, winter 2024 on this, and see how well it's holding up. And another option you can have to cover your lens, if you don't want a lens coat, if you don't want to use YureCam, or if you don't want to use Roland Pro, is you can use a vinyl sticker type, which is what's actually on the Z9 itself. That green vinyl wrap, that's from AlphaGuard. Now, just keep in mind that is literally just a vinyl sticker. It's not going to be heavy duty. It'll protect your lens from scratches, from briars, from dragging it across the concrete accidentally, that kind of stuff, but it's going to chew up your vinyl a little bit, but it's not going to add any thermal protection from the environment conditions on your lens. And that is the cheapest option. I looked it up. It's about $70, $75 for the wrap for this lens. So if that's what you would prefer, that might be an option for you. And they come in a gazillion different colors and patterns. And you can even do a custom pattern if you want on their website. And one thing I'm not a huge fan of is this extra piping that they use to like cover the stitches to make it more durable. Okay. Now, I understand why they did it. I get it. It makes a lot of sense to make sure it's extra sewn and extra strong on the edges so it doesn't fray as easily. But on like camo ones like this, I wish the piping was like tan or brown so it kind of blended in with the rest of the colors. But that's my only gripe on that, to be honest. Right now, if I remember off the top of my head, they're doing a current sale on this lens cover on their website. They're based in Australia, so it's about $85 right now, but it might be on sale. They do sales on these occasionally. But if you're interested in more of a discount on your purchase price, you can use my code that'll pop up here, and you'll get 10% off whatever the listed price is, which that's pretty cool. And shipping from Australia, Melbourne, Australia to Pittsburgh, where we're at, it was about $15. Just not a huge amount, to be honest. And that 10% off might make up for that shipping cost. It took about 10 days to get here from Australia, so traveling halfway around the planet, it's pretty good. Okay, so let's get some gloves on, try this thing out in a more real-world environment for how I use my camera, and let's see what we find. It's so nice to be able to shoot silent with no noise whatsoever. Man, highly recommend you check out my couple videos on the reviews of this 180-600, and with the silent shutter of the Z9, it's a breeze. It's so nice. And whenever you put this together, just a side thought, I would try and put all of your seams on the bottom so you have a cleaner look on the outside. I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. Mostly just because I wish the piping was a different color, so it blended in more. And I wish whenever I used my BlackRapid, and I screwed it in, whenever I used the camouflage piece that comes with this for the lens foot, that it had a bigger hole in it so that I could connect my BlackRapid without it loosening, because it has a rubber grommet on it, and that rubber grommet keeps it from backing out and keeps it nice and tight. With the grommet on there and the fabric over the foot, it doesn't really tighten down very well. So if I want to use it for that, I'm going to have to use like an X-Acto knife and cut a square out for where the D-ring is going to go into the lens. So other than those two things, honestly, it's a pretty great product. It's one of the cheaper priced covers, and I really don't think it's one of the cheaper material covers. I think it's one of the higher end material covers. So if you're interested in buying one of these covers from YureCam in Australia, use my little discount code down below for 10% off. Now, I do not get a kickback on that. This is simply just for them to hopefully prop up and get a good business going, because they do have nice products. All the links will be down below in the video description, and I will also link the other brands as well if you wish to check them out. I want to keep it fair, no bias, and yeah, honestly, great product. So until next time, happy shooting out there. Keep your equipment in tip-top shape with a nice cover. See ya. So dim, 5000 ISO, 1/1000th of a second. Oh my god. And of course it's just geese and mallards. Nothing else. Just the trained pet ducks are here today.
I've always dirtied everything that I found. This ain't no difference, so look at you now. And baby, cut yourself loose. Save all the things that I said that night. Playing it cool, but I never got it right.
Hey there everybody, welcome. Talking about teleconverters. So we have the 1.4 TCZ teleconverter here. I got this off Lens Rental, and honestly it came with a 2-year warranty for like $17, so you should still get a warranty on used equipment out there. So I think next time I go to buy something, I might be checking prices on Lens Rental instead of just getting a 6-month warranty from KEH or MPV. So first things first, what you got to pay attention to is there's this little thing on the front here. It says, don't put this end into your camera, it's going to hit the sensor. That's basically what that means. So the lens we're using to test this out is going to be the 180-600, and we'll just put that on there real quick, show you how that's done. If you're looking for something specific in the video that has a title, please look down below in the timeline and look at the chapters. The side that has that little logo on it, that goes in your lens first. As you can see, it has like this little part that sticks out. That goes down inside your lens. You gotta line up the white mark with the white mark on your lens, just like you're normally putting on a camera. Gets on there nice and snug. Has a little bit of wiggle back and forth once it's latched on, but it's the way it's supposed to be. It has a little bit of knurling on the outside here, so if you want to take it off, it's pretty easy to grab, even with gloves. Then you have the lens mount. Maybe you'll put that on your camera. We tested this on the Z9, but just for fitment purposes, we're going to put this on a ZFC. Just line it up with your dot, just like normal. Goes right on there. And it only makes the lens like maybe a ½ an inch longer, so not a whole lot of degradation to handling. And I know I'm going to mess up the weights on this, so I have my cheat sheet right here. So the Z9 weighs 1,340 grams. The cage I have on it is 272 grams. This lens is 2,140 grams. The teleconverter is 220 grams. So when all that's put together, the carrying weight is 3,972 grams, or 8 3/4 pounds. So it's definitely not exactly a small setup whenever you put on a Z9, but I mean, it's only adding 220 grams, so it's really not that much. The outside of the teleconverter on both ends does have a rubber gasket, so it is sealed just as well as any S lens would be sealed. A lot of people have asked, how does a teleconverter affect the stabilization of the lens whenever you have a stabilization of the lens, an IBIS in the camera? And honestly, I can't find any difference in it, and the website states that it should act the same with or without the teleconverter put in. The only negative when it comes to the teleconverter is you lose a stop of light. So the lens goes from a 5.6 to 6.3 to an f8 to an f9 whenever you zoom. So it would be f8 all the way at 180, and then it would be f9 at 600 millimeters. So in a grand scheme, I mean, it's not a huge difference, because I mean, you know, you're shooting wildlife in the middle of the day, maybe an overcast day, you're at a 800 to 1000 ISO. Put the teleconverter on there, you're going to be at 1600 to 2000 ISO. So not a huge difference on modern bodies, but it's just something you have to consider. Whenever it comes to the minimum focus distance with a teleconverter, it does not change. It's still the same at 180, it's still the same at 600. It doesn't change it at all. But what is kind of cool is this lens is a 0.25 reproduction ratio. When you put a teleconverter on, you have to multiply that number by 1.4. So it comes out to a reproduction ratio of 0.34. So it adds a tiny bit of macro capability to the lens. Now, it's not going to like blow your socks off. This isn't going to replace an actual macro lens, because if you have a macro lens and you put a teleconverter on a macro lens, if it accepts it, you actually get more of a macro ability to it. It goes past 1:1. It almost becomes like a micro lens. So whenever I go to use this lens, to make it a little bit easier with the teleconverter, since you're kind of zoomed out, so 600 millimeters becomes 840 millimeters on full frame. The programmable buttons here on the outside, I've remapped those so that I can select 3D tracking by just pushing it. So it'll shift from whatever, you know, autofocus I'm using to 3D tracking. Then if you let go of the button, it goes back to whatever you're using. So I generally tend to use auto area small and then 3D tracking. So if I can't, you know, see the bird in the bush or the brush or anything like that, or the animal, and then I need to like pick through it, I'll switch over to 3D to kind of like pinpoint the animal inside the brush, or I can just manual focus it, of course. So one of the most common questions is, why should I buy a teleconverter if I can just crop in post? Which, I mean, is a valid question. So we're going to compare at the short end. We'll start at 180 millimeters, wide open as you can get. So wide open without the teleconverter is 5.6. With the teleconverter, it's 8.0. So the right side is the crop from full frame, and the left side is full frame with a teleconverter. And I try to get these relatively close to each other. So we'll see how it looks. And also the colors might be a little different because this was outside on a sunny day. So colors might change a little bit here and there. And I didn't edit any of these. Nothing was added to them in post. 100% view. Try and get a little more even. So as you can see, there is a lot more details in the cropped version from full frame that are kind of missing when it comes to full frame with the teleconverter. The texture's just not there. Kind of hard to get them to match up. I mean, you might not be able to tell on YouTube, but it's definitely a little bit sharper on the non-teleconverter version. But it's certainly not like earth-shattering difference here. And I'm sure you can add some of this texture back by just editing it and, you know, adding texture and clarity and maybe clean this up a little bit. Okay, so this is 300 millimeters versus 420. You can see the information up here at the top. 300 on crop is about 450, and it's about 420 with a teleconverter, so it's pretty close. Still more details coming out here on just the crop version, not using the teleconverter. Some of these parts you can definitely see where there's a little bit more fringing going on the lines in comparison. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So about 550 millimeters. Kind of feels like it's the same as before, just not as extreme. Definitely feels like the lens is the sharpest, around 200 to 300. Now that we're getting a little further out, I'm starting to think the teleconverter is a little bit sharper than cropping from straight full frame. So we're just going to skip and go all the way to 600. Okay, so we got 600 millimeters in DX mode, so 900, and we have 840 with the TC on full frame. I am a little surprised that the picture from the teleconverter has like a redder tone to it. Could also just been from the sun too, so hard to really rule that out. So just comparing the TC to DX mode, I would say for the most part the DX seems a little sharper, but also with the TC on the full frame you can feed that into you know, the noise programs like LRC has or from Topaz and get pretty good results from that. And just feeding it a larger file will give you finer details when you go to export it. So here we're going to go over full frame versus the teleconverter full frame, see how they look compared to each other wide open. The left side is going to be the teleconverter, as you can see up here. Right side is going to be full frame without it. Kind of the same song and dance, a little bit more texture and sharpness in the center. And the corners, it kind of feels like a wash. Not a huge disparity going on here in the corners between the two. I mean, you can tell the non-TC'd full frame without the teleconverter is a little smidge sharper. Kind of splitting hairs at this point, to be honest. Okay, let's go right out to 600 and see what the difference is. I don't really want to go through every single, you know, spot on the lens here. Okay, 600 millimeters on both, and the left side has teleconverter. Definitely can see the paper texture a lot more in the naked lens. So yeah, overall, just more texture without the teleconverter. And I'm a strong believer you can just add that back in post for the most part. So okay, now let's compare starting from the beginning, the 180 all the way to 600 on the TC versus full frame without the TC at f11 constant. See how it changes. So the left side again is going to be the teleconverter, the right side is the naked lens. So we'll go into the center. F11 does seem to have sharpened it up a little bit. It's gained a little bit of texture back from the paper. Certainly not the worst. I mean, yeah, I feel like it definitely sharpened up the teleconverter at this point at 180. Okay, so here we are at 300 millimeters. Definitely feel like it's handling the teleconverter a lot better when you stop it down. Not that you want to shoot at f11, but the option's certainly there. And I mean, yes, I know we're kind of splitting hairs at this point. This does look, honestly, pretty convincing for a TC being usable. But if you need, like, you know, maximum texture and sharpness, obviously don't use a teleconverter, but this is working out a lot better than most zoom lenses, you know, work with teleconverters. Okay, let's go to 400. Kind of the same thing, nothing different going on. Smidge more texture in the naked lens. Okay, let's just go to 600 and be done with it. I mean, at 600 they're pretty close. A little bit more in the naked lens, but again, more hair splitting. You gotta think about this also. This is a 45 megapixel image. You're zooming it 100% at 1:1. So kind of on the extreme side, to be honest. And I just want to point out that I did measure the distance between the tripod and the target, and with the naked lens, to fill the frame with the A3 paper-sized print for the target we have here, I needed to be 8 feet back at 180 millimeters, 300 millimeters was 13 feet, 400 millimeters was 17 feet, 500 millimeters was 20 feet, and 600 millimeters was 23 feet. Now if you put that in comparison with the teleconverter on the full frame lens, at 180 feet it was 10 feet, 300 millimeters was 20 feet, 400 millimeters was 24 feet, 500 millimeters was 28 feet, and 600 millimeters was 32 feet. So with using a teleconverter at 600 millimeters, you gain 10 feet to stand further back to capture an image in full frame resolution of a target the size of an A3 piece of paper, which is 11 by 17. So let's just go over some of the pros and cons. No specific order, no pros list, no cons list, just throwing them all out there together. Some things that I've noticed while using this lens is obviously as you are forced to stop down to like f9, sometimes f10 if you want, but at least f9. Any sensor dust on your camera sensor is going to show up. So you're gonna want to get a sensor cleaning swab for your camera, and it's super easy to do. It takes like 15-20 seconds max, and it just keeps those little dots from showing up all over your photos. Some people have asked if it has any effect on battery life, and honestly it's negligible, if nothing. I doubt it has anything to do with battery life. I'm still able to get thousands of photos on the Z9, and it works like you have no teleconverter there. From my experience in the past couple weeks testing this out every day, taking pictures of small little songbirds and everything, the autofocus is just as snappy, just as quick, just as sticky when using Bird AF, and it has no effect on that either. It's super responsive, honestly. It has no care whatsoever about the teleconverter being there. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes you can run into some ISO noise problems in photo, especially if you're doing fast shutter speed stuff. As we get a plane flying over us. But when it comes to video, most of the time, it's really not a big deal because, you're already at f9 and you're probably low ISO, low shutter speed, so you don't really need to jack up the ISO a whole lot to get a good image out of it for video. If you have any concerns for having high ISO in your photos, or if you want to sharpen them up a little bit, replace some of the contrast you lose from using a teleconverter, you can use the denoise in Lightroom, or I use DxO Pure Raw 3. That helps a ton in bringing a lot of the stuff back that you lose with using like the center, like quarter inch of your glass is a teleconverter, and it just kind of makes every photo as if you didn't use a teleconverter and removes all the noise. So I really do enjoy that program, and if you want to see a tutorial or a review on that, make sure to check it out on the channel. Probably my number one tip for using a teleconverter on your 180 to 600 is if you're photographing a bird, say 15 meters away, normally without a teleconverter. When you put a teleconverter on the lens, you're not going to get to shoot a bird at 20 meters away or 30 meters away. It's not like that much of a magnification. It pretty much just enhances the picture that you would have already gotten at the same distance. That way you're not stretching the lens too far or stretching your sensor too far. If you're not close enough to the subject in the first place without a teleconverter, the teleconverter is not really going to be a band-aid to fix that. You still need to get to the same distance you did before. Probably one of my favorite things about using a teleconverter is video, because as you've seen from the example from the Eagle clip, you get an insane amount of range from a 600mm lens. But the only negative is if there's any amount of wind whatsoever in that video where you're shooting, the vibrations on the lens shaking from the wind, no matter how much you have it tied down, it's going to put little micro jitters in your video, and it's kind of going to ruin the shot. But if it's a nice calm day like today, you're going to get some pretty good footage from 1/8 of a mile, 1/4 mile away from whatever your subject is. Because the Z9 offers that 4K 120 with a 2.3x crop, and it still gives you a 4K footage. So if you needed to, you could still pull stills out when you're editing, and it would still look pretty good and probably be about 8 or 9 megapixels. The other major problem with using a teleconverter, besides worrying about wind or your ISO control, is going to be atmospheric conditions. If you're shooting something 20 meters away, but the ground is really cold and you have really warm sunlight coming down onto you like right now, you're going to get a lot of heat haze, atmospheric disturbance between you and your subject. It's going to look like jello in the viewfinder. It's just going to be unappeasing, and you would normally have to deal with that anyways without a teleconverter, but using a teleconverter on it, it's just going to amplify that atmospheric distortion you're going to get. So not every day is going to be a teleconverter day. If you see something in the video or have questions about something in the video or the teleconverter, please drop a line down below, ask away. I will get back to you as soon as I can, and I really appreciate all those questions and comments. because you might be asking something that someone didn't think about, and if they read the comments, it might trigger something and help them out too. It's not exactly the best time of year to be doing a review like this, because you're pretty limited to your non-migratory songbirds this early in spring. It is February, even though we probably should have a foot of snow, but it's been like 60 degrees some days, or 20 C almost. But if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and if you're interested in supporting the channel monetarily, there is a group, the Woodland crew. You can subscribe for $2 a month, get behind the scenes comments, footage, community posts, all kinds of other stuff, unreleased videos that are only for community members. So if you're interested in that, check it out. I appreciate it. So until next time, we're all in this together. I'm rooting for you. Best of luck. I'll see you out there. Welcome everybody to the channel. We're talking about the Nikon ZFC. This is going to be my in-depth review for it, pertaining mostly to wildlife and landscape. Obviously you can use this for a ton of other things, and my personal main use for it is going to be shooting B-roll like this for video reviews, or just in the kayak, just general stuff like that, so I can actually hold the ZFC and do what I want to do with it, and not have to rely on junky GoPro video quality. It's literally December 22nd, and there's a heron here still. So that's unexpected. But there is a little bit of ice on top of the water. But first things first, let's talk about the ZFC in general before we get out here and start shooting. And my main use, as I mentioned, for the ZFC is just going to be B-roll, just basic video like this. And also, it is like my family video camera, photo camera go-to. So anytime we go on vacations, trips, anything with the kid, I'm going to bring this with me. The only major problem I find with the kit lens is whenever you're using it on the ZFC. As you can see, the ZFC is very tiny. Very, very tiny. It really limits you on your aperture. It goes like 3.5 to 6.3, something like that. It's in my bag. It stays in my bag for the most part. I use the full frame 40 f2 on this a lot. So the kit lens, it has 4.5 stops of VR. It is not weather sealed and it has a plastic lens mount. So yeah, but for a kit lens, it is relatively sharp. You don't have to worry about that too much. So this camera, the body itself, you could probably get it used on MBP, tongue twister, or Adorama, BH, whatever. I got mine for about $650 on eBay, and I'll put links in the description for the other places. And I am now affiliated with Adorama, so if you don't want to buy anything from Amazon, you're more than welcome to support the channel through Adorama purchases, and I really appreciate that. So, notable negatives for the camera that are acceptable for the price range. This camera doesn't have IBIS, it is not weather sealed. It has one SD card slot, it's UH1 speed, so it's going to limit your buffers just like a Z50. And also, it has a micro HDMI, which is not exactly ideal for doing videos and stuff. It only does 4K 30 and 8-bit H.264 with a maximum shutter speed of 1/4000th of a second. So let's go on to the odd quirks of the camera. So whenever you're, using this forward facing, because it has this really cool articulating screen, which I really hope that all Z cameras going forward will start having. When you have it facing forward like this, works nice. But then all of the jacks are right here. So if you have cables and stuff plugged into your computer or into your camera, it's going to cover half the screen. You can still see what you're doing, but it's certainly not ideal. And if you want to use touch focus on here or anything like that, then the cables might get in your way of where you want to touch and focus. So, another odd thing that I find interesting on this that I don't completely understand is on top, there's this little f-stop window. I guess it's supposed to simulate how the old cameras, you could look down and see the f-stop on your lens through a little window. But, I mean, I don't know. Could have saved a couple bucks and got rid of this tiny little window right here. I just don't personally understand it. This is on my chest, rubbing around on my shirt, hoodie, jacket, whatever. The rubber circular eye cup. It's a nice eye cup. It's a nice EVF. It's the same EVF as like Z6, Z7. And same resolution, I believe, as the Z9. Just obviously not the refresh rate. So this thing collects lint like you wouldn't believe. Like, I cleaned it. I honestly cleaned it. It probably won't focus on it. It's focusing on my eyes. I cleaned that. I swear I did. It's been 10 minutes and it's already got lint all over inside there. It's like a little Pac-Man. Wop, wop, wop. Going through there, just eating all the lint off your shirt. Something that's kind of crappy is it's very particular about what batteries you use. And the battery compartment is on the bottom. Right there. Has a little yellow thing to eject the battery. It only likes Nikon batteries. If you try using a Wasabi or third-party battery, not a fan, doesn't like it. And obviously, there is no rubber gasket down here to protect your box. I got this strap off of a store on Instagram. Super cool strap. I've had it for about 2 months. Zero wear on it. I'll put a picture for where I got this from and the name of the Instagram, so you can check their store out and get it. I think it was like, I don't know, 30-40 bucks. It's definitely nice, especially if you buy this used like I did and you don't have a strap anymore. And if you are going to be shooting large lenses like a 180 to 600, 7200, anything that takes two hands to shoot, one on the camera, one on the lens, highly recommend you get a grip for it. Now this is off eBay as well. It's hard to see, but this is African blackwood on here. It's very, very dark. It's handmade. Someone makes it, sells it on eBay, so support the little guy. And I'll put a link on in the video for this and in the description if you want to get this off eBay. It comes in 3 different colors. It took about a month and a half to get here. I think it was China or Japan, but it's homemade, so some guy really put a lot of effort into this, and I appreciate it. So whenever you put it on, it has a little bit of like rubber-ish felt padding on the bottom so it doesn't scratch up your camera. It's got an Arca plate built in, a little thumb screw, and a locker so it grips in. So when you put it on, definitely gives you a much improved grip on the camera, especially with someone with bigger hands like me. It is wonders to use that on a large lens. You gotta trust me on that. It's the only way to go. And it doesn't block your battery compartment either, so you can still get access to your SD card and battery. And since we have the grip on there, I just want to point out, this is made to look like a retro camera. It's got retro dials on top. It's supposed to have the ergonomics of holding a cinder block in your hand. Now, it doesn't feel as nice as, you know, a 1980s FM2 or anything like that. So, just get that out of your head. It's going to have terrible ergonomics and handling, okay? This is not a modern design camera. I don't want to hear any complaints about it, because that's all people say. Oh, it's got terrible ergonomics. You're buying it for the looks, okay? And it's got slightly upgraded internals compared to a Z50. And by that, I just mean maybe a little bit better video, obviously a better flip screen, and yeah, you just want the ergonomics. You can also rotate the back screen so you can't see it, so it looks like a film camera. But if you want to see the back screen, you can rotate it, put it back, and there you go. You got your back screen back. So, design cons, okay? A lot of design cons. Like I said, it's not built to induce any, you know, this thing isn't going to survive Antarctica. It's not a Z8, a Z9, you know, single-digit pro body DSLR. It's not a D500. It shares a sensor with the D500, but it's a little bit different because of it being a mirrorless. It only has one FN button on the front to program. So personally, I changed that program to silent photography. And then for regular photos, I remapped the record button so I could cycle through the autofocus types. Autofocus manual, continuous, or single is on the back, and autofocus versions are on the front wheel. So that works out pretty good for that one. You can't shoot this in full manual without using the ISO wheel. So With wildlife today, that is going to be kind of a pain, so we are going to leave it in auto ISO. Not a fan of that. Just for years and years and years, I've used full manual ISO, all that jazz. So it's going to be an interesting learning curve for myself. It is a magnesium body, but it has a plastic base, so it's not going to have the greatest durability, like I said. You can only record 30 minutes at a time for video for this, like you used to only be able to. They haven't firmware updated that, so you can do more, so kind of crappy, but you know, if you're going to do more than that, you can get a different camera, I guess, or just sit there and hit the record button when it's done. And one of the negatives for this that I'm going to miss from using the Z9, because we're using the Z9 right now, is it doesn't have animal eye AF outside of cats and dogs. So we're going to basically stick with dynamic area and just keep that on the subject and fire away. One thing I have noticed since I've had this for about 4 or 5 months is this like fake faux leather, whatever material this is right here. It's kind of like a super soft, not super soft, it's like a softish, rubberish, I don't know. It could be real leather, but it's not. As soon as this stuff gets wet, it is so ungodly slippery. So yeah, definitely want a grip on there if you're doing anything serious beyond just family point and shoots and vacations and stuff. So, major pros. That's the good stuff. So this can do focus shift shooting for macro or landscape. So it will automatically adjust the focus point up to, like, I don't know, I don't remember, like 100 photos it'll take by itself in a row, and you can stack those in Photoshop. And it works really good. I did it on the Z7 too, the Z9. I haven't done this. I no longer have a macro lens for right now. So hopefully in the future I'll get a 105 MCZ and we'll try that out. But it's the same thing for landscapes, and it works really well. You can charge this camera over USB-C. The Z50 does not have a USB-C. It has a macro or micro B USB, I don't know, whatever. It's the tiniest thing left over from like cell phones from 15 years ago that the Z50 uses to charge. It's a proprietary cable. In 2023 it's basically proprietary cable because nothing else uses that cable, but they have updated this to USB-C, so that's super awesome. And you can charge the battery internally, or you can run the camera off wall power using basically a phone charger, as long as it's USB-C. The body itself only weighs 390 grams, so with the kit lens in this thing sitting on my RAM mount for the GoPro, it can still hold it and it doesn't sag or flop all over the place. So that's pretty cool. If you want to use this for a stand-in action camera and, you know, kayaks and stuff, anything that's not like whitewater rafting because it's not weather sealed. For family photos and portraits, the IAF for you know, humans, kids, toddlers, it's accurate, it's reliable. It's about as good as you're going to get for the class that it's in. One of the cool things for landscape photographers, if you can't afford full frame and you still want mirrorless, is this goes up to 900 seconds for doing landscape. You know, if you have an 18 stop ND filter on there, you can still do like a 5, 10, 15 minute exposure internally without an intervalometer, which is super cool. Saves you a lot of money on that because those are like $40 to $60 just for those. Menu system. It is fully touchscreen on here, so whenever you go into the menus, like this, like those, all the menus are touchscreen accessible, so super awesome, because it doesn't have the greatest ergonomics. You're probably not going to be using the wheel and the buttons a whole lot, so just using your finger on the screen is a blessing. One of my favorite personal things is, I don't know if you'll be able to see too well, but on top right here, there is a switch to switch between photo and video. Super quick, and yeah, it's lightning fast switching between. You don't have to wait for any new menus to load or anything like that. My personal suggestion is once you're out like this and you know you're going to be switching between photo and video, just make sure you set up your exposures for both and then set it out. You don't want to be messing with setting it up when something's happening in front of you. And if you wished, I don't, because I have a monitor, a Shinobi monitor, Atomos Shinobi, and I also have a you know, a ZFC with the screen that flips around, but it is capable of being used with the SnapBridge app, so you can control this with your phone, which I guess some people do. Personally, I can't stand it. The app is just not reliable. It does not have a GPS in it. So if you want to link GPS coordinates to whatever pictures you're taking, you need to link that through GPS on the SnapBridge app. So you can also use this with adapted lenses. Since this does not have VR, you don't really have to program the f-stop of the adapted lens. So it's not a huge deal to do. But if you want to do it, it's definitely doable, and it works really good. I have a person, I don't remember the name of the adapter. I think it was off Amazon. I'll put a picture of it up on the screen so you can see what it is. Link down below, of course. But yeah, it works really good with my Canon FD full frame lenses, and I get really nice pictures out of it, to be honest. So yeah, you can adapt pretty much anything to this. So whenever it comes to autofocus settings on this thing, my recommendation is, if it's fast moving, if you're doing sports, wildlife, anything like that, okay, what you need to do is set it to dynamic area. Looks like a little cross, okay. And then you need to do autofocus continuous, AFC. Then, you know, you can select between, you know, shoot once, 5 frames per second. And if you are in 14-bit, you can shoot 9 frames per second. And if you bump it down to 12-bit, I believe it's 12 frames per second. I'm not 100% sure. It's 11 frames per second. I had to check my notes. I use autofocus continuous even if the subject's not moving. That's just me. But if you're using people, obviously change it to auto area, small or large, and select people. If you're shooting continuous high plus, which is like the 9 to 11 frames per second, you will have a stutter effect. It'll be very hard to track fast-moving objects. So for today, we're shooting only 5 frames per second. That way the EVF can keep up with what we're doing. At 14-bit, at 9 frames per second, high continuous plus, I've gotten about 40 frames. So you get about, you know, 4 seconds of buffer capacity. So not too bad for, you know, a $600 basically entry camera. Ain't too bad. You get 4K 30 all the way down to 4K 24. You get 1080p. You also get 1080p 120 frames per second, which is going to be a little on the soft side because it's 1080p. It does have built-in stereo microphones somewhere. They're kind of hard to see, to be honest. They're literally right here. They're underneath the Nikon logo on this little lip. This shoots 4K 30 from the full sensor. So that means this is subsampled 4K from 6K internally, but like I said, it's only 8-bit 264 420, something like that. Yeah, 420. So it's not going to blow your pants off, but it's definitely going to be sharper 4K than you know, other cameras have given you before. Now this does have electronic shutter, as I mentioned, so whenever you're shooting wildlife, I would suggest only use the mechanical shutter. But if you want to be silent, that's definitely an option. And if you're using, you know, the 180 to 600, you put it on a crop body. You can see how goofy tiny that looks. You're going to get the equivalent of like 270 to 900, which is pretty freaking sweet. So we're gonna motor around here, see what we can find with it, and whenever I post the pictures, I'll put the little, you know, the stats of the exposure below. A couple times I might show before and after using DxO Pure Raw 3 or Lightroom's denoise ability, but for the most part we're going to try and keep it pretty static, and then we're going to have some video examples as well. So that's enough chatting. Let's go see if we can find some ducks and waterfowl. So let's go. I see a whole bunch of something up there on the surface of the water, and I just checked the map. It's about a mile away, so we're gonna try and speed up and get up there, you know, at some point through the day, because it's not like this boat's the fastest thing in the world, but sure beats paddling a mile just to go take pictures. What we're gonna use to record the camera EVF is the rusty trusty old Zcam IP-Man jumping eye, and I've used this about a million times. There's a video on that if you want to check it out. It's definitely one of the easiest, cheapest ways to record your EVF if you're using an Android phone. So one thing that I did forget to mention on the ZFC is if when you're in auto area, okay, and you press the OK button, you can map this to something else. But if you press the OK button, it'll bring up a little tracking box. It's about that big on the screen, give or take. And you can use that to lock on to basically anything, as long as it has good contrast. But you have to fill the frame with that subject. If it's far away, that thing will just go wherever it wants. It has no interest in staying where it needs to stay, unless you pretty much fill the frame. So that's something to keep in mind that I completely forgot to mention. But also, another thing I forgot to mention is whenever you are in silent mode and you're shooting electronic shutter, even if you're not shooting a very high frame rate, the electronic shutter will lag behind your subject. So if it's a moving subject, I strongly suggest using mechanical shutter, not electronic, because it will not be easy to keep up or track what you're trying to photograph. So yeah, words of wisdom right there. Just trying to catch 3 birds that flew by, one after another. I was basically having the camera right up against the buffer in high continuous plus. Certainly not the best camera for wildlife, but it's basically identical to trying to use a like a Z6 or Z7, honestly. It's got the same autofocus in it, same speed processor, so I mean, it's pretty much what you expect, to be honest. One thing that those cameras can do, can do better is a full manual ISO and everything, and obviously full frame for your ISO control. So we made it out about a mile and a half from the launch, out to the middle of the lake. Basically by just off the point from where the beach is. And it's getting a little chilly. It's currently 36 degrees. Today is going to be a high of 41. So a little chilly out in the middle of the lake here. And we're just going to do a little paddling instead of using the motor, just so I can warm up. Plus it gives me something to do because we ain't seeing a whole lot besides stupid seagulls. So we're just going to go up here, go through the inlets on the way back to the launch, and see if we can't find any ducks, because haven't really seen much. We've seen enough to, you know, get a taste of the autofocus tracking, different settings, frames per second, EVF refresh rate, buffer, battery, all the, you know, the stuff that actually matters. But it's just not fun shooting seagulls. So we're going to see if we can't find a little bit more of my speed, some waterfowls, ducks in flight, that kind of stuff. So back there we had some graves, at least it looked like graves. It's kind of hard to get a identification through the EVF with the tinted glasses, because the ZFC EVF is not as bright as the Z9. So if you have transition lenses or sunglasses, it's a little hard to judge exposure, but if you just use the exposure meter like we've used for the last 50 years, you'll be good to go. And as you can see, this water is like immaculate. It's perfectly flat. It's crazy. So it's looked like we're getting about 500 photos on a battery on the ZFC. Now it is a little chilly. I have left the camera in standby maybe half the time of the past, I don't know, hour and a half. So 30 minutes it's been standby. The startup time is not exactly blazingly fast. So I suggest you leave the camera on, leave it in standby, and then as you pick the camera up to take your photo, bump the autofocus so it takes it out of standby and starts the camera up. Because if you don't do that, you're going to be waiting, I don't know, a second and a half for the camera to get going, show the EVF, all that good stuff. So yeah, definitely make that to be a muscle memory thing. So that as soon as you pick it up, bump the autofocus, bring it to your eye, and then you'll be ready to go. On our way back to the launch here, I kind of toggled the camera on and off a lot there at the end. I pretty much milked the battery for as much as I could. Ended up with 700 photos on a battery until it started blinking red, saying it was going to die. So honestly, for being close to freezing out here, getting 700 photos on that tiny little, what was it, ENEL14, there is literally nowhere to control this camera with gloves on. If you're trying to press the record button to change between autofocus types, you're probably going to hit everything else with gloves on. So it's a camera that requires high dexterity to really use efficiently, so not an easy cold weather camera. I would probably suggest people to go to a Z50 if they're shooting wildlife on crop for a Nikon, since really that's the only options we got right now is ZFC, Z50, and Z30. The Z30 doesn't even have a viewfinder, so that's automatically out. So hopefully in 2024, Nikon will come out with a crop camera and update or replace these two, which would be awesome, because the tech in these is coming up on like 4 years old. It's really nothing to write home about. But for used prices, they're excellent starter cameras for you know, learning wildlife or just photography in general. And just a little self-promo put out there. If you want to support the channel, I have hoodies. Can't really see it too well because it's cold out here. T-shirts, whatever. It's on Bonfire. Link in the description for that. If you don't want to support the channel through, you know, purchasing clothing, I have stickers through Redbubble. Link down there. Link for all this stuff. There's also my Adorama Amazon affiliate links down there. You can use those, you know, support channel that way, which really doesn't cost you any money. You just buy things and I get like an ad service revenue from it. And of course, watching the videos, which I extremely appreciate. And please hit that subscribe button if you have found this video interesting or entertaining. And hopefully it showed you that this older cameras can still punch above their weight whenever it comes to price and performance for wildlife photography. I do have membership open now to the channel. It's $2 a month, and at the end of the videos I always have them scroll up for the current or new members. And yeah, you get to see behind the scenes posts on the community tab, and maybe some Q&A and some other stuff, and you get a little icon next to your name. And if there's anything that I missed about the camera, or really any questions in general you are interested in asking, please drop them down below in the comments, and I will absolutely get to you as soon as possible. Members get first dibs on responses as well. So until next time, happy shooting out there. I'll see ya. Good luck. Hopefully you have better weather than me instead of this gray, boring crap, and you know, you actually see some waterfowl or wildlife. I'll see you out there. Literally in the middle of in the middle of the lake, and I'm getting spam calls. For the 50th time, National Police, whoever they are, National Police, asking for donations. Oh yeah, brilliant of me. I forgot my notes at home. I literally had them in my backpack. I put something in the backpack so I wouldn't forget that, and I took the notes out. So, brilliant move. Hey there everybody, welcome to the channel. We're going over the new firmware for the Z9, which is the firmware 4.10. It has the Bird AF added in, and we're here at Raccoon State Park. Now, we just got here and I haven't really seen a whole lot. Now, as you can see, hopefully my kayak video, this part, talking head in the boat, is much higher quality because we are recording on a ZFC on a tripod in the boat, and we have a shotgun mic on top with the Zoom F2. So hopefully this was a huge upgrade. So we've changed the camera into Bird AF, and we're using the full area for auto area, and we're going to see how accurate it gets. I have tested it a little bit, and it seems to be one heck of a good improvement. So hopefully with some video evidence I can convince you that it's pretty great. And to record the EVF, per usual, we got the ZCam IP-Man Gemini on here with the phone. And I also have the new 180 to 600 Nikon lens, which is super sweet. If you want to see my initial review and first time out with it, doing something, you know, shooting something with it, check out a little blip up there for a video from the Cleveland Airshow. There's a kingfisher up here on this branch. Let's see if we can't just kind of get towards them. Wind's kind of not that strong today, but it's not ideal. Not bad, not bad, but I think I'm going to switch over to 3D tracking so I can at least put the dot on the bird and then let bird AF take over from there. Well, he ran to the other side of the lake. But for my first 2 seconds trying this, definitely seems like an improvement. Definitely seems to find the bird when it's in like, you know, brushy areas with a busy backdrop. Because back there, I mean, you can see the bush that it was like sitting on, the branch was, I don't know, 3 feet from the background, and the camera still held on pretty good. Now, I know people say, but the AF moved a little bit. The box moved a little bit. But I guarantee you when you go and actually look at the pictures, you're going to get probably 30, 40, 50 sharp ones in focus. It's good. Like, it's on 20 FPS and I probably only took 40, 50 pictures right there. So, there's some big birds flying over top of us here. Looks like a pair of red-tailed hawks. That's pretty cool. Now, not exactly the hardest thing to photograph. I'd say they're probably 250 feet away. Honestly, I thought they were eagles at first, but nope, no eagles. That was super cool. It was too shallow here for the motor, so we kicked it up, used the paddle, carried him around this corner, and I had a feeling something was going to be there. Looked right through the brush, and you could see a little blue heron doing his fishing. So that's, I mean, it's just a blue heron, but it's one of my favorite things. Just sneak up on an animal and watch them for a few minutes of, you know, what they're up to. As a heron flies directly over top of our head, and I didn't even notice the last second. Looks like he's just going to chill in this tree up here. Well, with the water being so calm, no wind back here, I think I'm going to try video with bird AF. See how that goes. Well, I'm sure this isn't what you thought whenever I said bird AF video, but we're going to try it out. He just moved up to another tree, so... I definitely need an anchor for this. I definitely wish there wasn't so many planes flying around overhead. Yeah, I would say that in video for auto area in bird AF full time, and that's really good. That's in 4K 120 2.23x crop, so bad with math. 1200 millimeters. I don't know, 100 feet, 150 feet away. I'm pretty thrilled with that. It's got to be one of the most friendly blue herons I've ever seen. He's just chilling up there. Okay. Time to move on and tear down this tripod. Well, this is a new turn of events. On the back of the creek here, there is a huge beaver dam. I'll just turn the camera around so you can see. Like, holy moly. So it's been pretty slow day here, looking for some waterfowl to test the Bird AF on. And it's kind of funny. Usually I don't like photographing geese, but there's one Canada goose in front of us, so might as well take a picture. And can't really miss focus on that, I guess. It is super strange that it's just one goose and nothing else out here. Well, everybody, we've made it to the end here after doing a little bit of testing with the 3D and auto area for the Bird's autofocus from firmware 4.10 on the Z9. And I was very happy to be able to take my brand new 180-600 out. Super excited about that. And currently the Sigma is on eBay if anybody wants to buy my old Sigma 150-600. It wasn't as active of a day as I was hoping to find. I really thought, since this was like the last, warm day, 71 degrees, 20 C out, partly cloudy, a little bit of blue skies, really expected there to be a lot more waterfowl and birds out, but win some, lose some. But I think after today, after a little bit we've seen, we can say that the Bird update in firmware 4.1 has been a pretty nice update for the Z9, and we know it's going to come to the Z8 in the future as well. So it's not really locked into one camera. And I'm going to assume that when the next generation of Z6 and 7s, it's going to be in there as well. Later in the year, I wouldn't be surprised if you see me back out here again, trying to do the same thing, but more of just a leisurely ride around in the kayak, looking for some things to take pictures of. But I'm sure I'll have other comments to make on the Bird AF by then. And I'm just going to put out there that there is a new subscription ability on the YouTube channel. So if you want to subscribe for $2 a month, you can hit the subscription button. And it really doesn't give you a whole lot, but it's $2. It goes right to my bottom line. Helps me come out here and do this kind of stuff. And it will give you access to my community posts, some behind the scenes things, and then in the future I might put a little link in there for a Dropbox so you can upload some of your favorite photos to it, and maybe I'll do a video for landscape and wildlife critique in the future, that kind of stuff. Just something fun, something different. And then at the end of all videos that have new member subscriptions, I'll announce your name at the end, and I think that'd be kind of cool. And also, one more thing I forgot is you can comment on the videos like normal, but members get first responses. So if I post a video that turns out to be popular, like a couple have been, I will get notifications that members have commented on. You'll be the first ones to get a response. So, until next time, I wish you the best of luck. Happy shooting out there. Hopefully you get better luck than I did today. I'll see you. Little note here at the end of the video. Bonus material, shall we say. So I couldn't really find a whole lot to shoot today, you know? Well, here I am, pulling into the boat launch. About ready to finish the day. And that same goose. The same goose. Look at him. He's just taunting me today. Okay, other than that, yeah. Just had to vent that. Thought that was kind of funny. See ya. So on this unique episode, we're going over a real-world test and examples for the 1.4 TC on the 180-600 here from Nikon. This is the first time I've really been able to take it out in the field and just do a whole day of shooting. This is not going to be a technical video. If you want a technical video, make sure to check out the pop-up for the 1.4 TC review I did a few weeks ago. That goes into stuff pretty in-depth if that's your sort of thing. But I implore you to just watch the video and just enjoy the photos and videos that we get. Now we're going up to Lake Wilhelm at Goddard State Park, and we have a really cool special guest on the channel for this video. Her name's Tiana. She's a wildlife biologist, and we'll put all of her socials right here for you to check out. And I highly recommend you go subscribe and follow her Instagram, because she does all kinds of cool stuff with birds, ornithology, herping, reptiles, amphibians, different jobs across the U.S., and she's super knowledgeable. Great reference to have in your back pocket for these sort of things, because I am not brilliant at birds, so she was super helpful. She took the front seat in the kayak and was basically my spotter. So here in a second, we're going to roll the photo and video footage we got with a little bit of music, and hopefully you enjoy it.
Watch me sway, darkness falls, and we all pray, hoping for the light of day. Down to the river, I have held the devil's hand, felt the weight of my own sin, burdened by the heart of man. Down to the river, down to the river. Oh, bury me, carry me up. Taught me how to live, Daddy taught me how to give. Both of them had their own sins. Down to the river, every man has felt the shame. All our blood, it runs the same. Father, heal us as we pray. Down to the river, down to the river. Sing, oh, bury me, carry me.
So that one does have a baby on its back? If you see something that you think is a raptor, but it looks like it's kind of swimming through the air, like almost like it's rowing, crow. But they have wings that, especially like they kind of look raptor-like, especially when they're all like backlit like this.
Bury me, carry me up, fire beneath, fire and water me, going down deep. Sing, bury me, carry me up, fire beneath, fire and water me, watching me sink everything. down to the river. Some people got a good hand, never wondering if they can. But I've been fighting what I'm feeling, needing something to believe in. Oh, lift me up from the valley. Oh, lift me up from the stone. Oh, lift me up from the valley. Oh, lift me up. Baby, let it shine. Get on up, raise your head and hold it high. Let it shine. Get on up. You are more than meets the eye, so let it shine. Are you ashamed of how you're looking? Afraid of their opinions? Well, I've been locked up in this prison.
Hey there everybody, welcome to the channel. This is something I've been working on for a couple months now, and this is coming up on the 10 to 12 month ownership of the 180 to 600, and I just want to go over, you know, long-term uses of it and how it's panned out for me. So I just want to say right out of the gate how nicely this thing balances on the Z9. I mean, look at this. It's like perfectly flat with the BlackRapid strap in the first hole of the lens foot, and you still have plenty of space to carry it around whenever you're walking. I usually like hold on to it whenever I'm walking. So maybe if you also had a lighter camera, the lens would tip up a little bit while you're carrying it. But it's just so nice that it's nice and flat. And another thing I really appreciate on this lens compared to my old Sigma 150 to 600 on the adapter, or really just on the F-mount camera in general, is the options here. The autofocus and manual focus and the zoom limiter. There's only two switches on the outside. Since they're recessed, you're not really going to be hitting that on your hips as you walk. So as you walk, you know, the camera sways back and forth, and the loops for my belt and everything would always hit the switches and move them around. So you will put the camera back up to your face, go take a picture, and suddenly, you know, you're not focusing to infinity, or it's in manual focus, and you can't figure out what's going on for a few seconds. So that's like one of my favorites right there. Now, I do not use the tripod foot itself on a tripod, but if you want, you can loosen it a little bit, and you can rotate it around on the lens. Pretty nice. So if you're using this on a tripod with just a lens foot, you can do that. But myself, I use a lens rail system, so it's not really something I worry about too much. I'll see a lot of people online complaining about, like, I don't know, maybe I just got a good copy, I don't know, about the lens foot, like moving around or not being tight, or I honestly don't understand their complaints. I don't know, mine's been fine. I haven't touched it in the 10 months I've owned it. And then whenever I go to mount this on my fluid head for video, I have a thing on the back that clips on to the tripod head, and a little Y thing that holds the camera like this, so there isn't any extra weight on the lens mount. And plus, if you're dealing with over 1,000 millimeters, 1,200 millimeters, put a teleconverter on here, you're even further out. It helps with the micro vibrations from the wind, from panning, anything like that. Now, as I mentioned, this does take a teleconverter. I do have a 1.4 teleconverter. Slap it in here between the camera and the lens, and it works good. But I mostly took it off just so that I could take it to the zoo and some other places where, I mean, yeah, I don't need 1,200 millimeters of range, so not a huge deal on that. And if you're interested in checking out about teleconverters, how it works on the lens and the camera, I have another video about that. You're welcome to check out after this. I also have a sharpness and comparison video between the Sigma 150 to 600 Contemporary and the 180 to 600. You're welcome to check that as well. When it comes to the programmable button on the lens, so you have 4 around the lens. That way, no matter which way you're shooting, you have access to the button. It functions as one button. You don't actually have 4 buttons. But for myself, I have changed that to program for 3D focusing. So usually if I'm on auto area or single point, dynamic, something like that, and you're up here and like you can't really get a bead on what you want, because there's like maybe twigs or other stuff in the way, you can kind of use the 3D area as like a single point, and then it'll track onto the animal or subject that you want. And as soon as you let go of the button, it goes back into whatever autofocus system you were using beforehand. And at the start of the video, I mentioned I have the BlackRapid strap. I've had this strap 6 years now, same strap for 6 years. Literally, it has been working like a champ. I have had it on the 150 to 600, now the 180 to 600. I use it on the camera body for macro, literally just walking around town, any kind of street photography. I don't know, it's my go-to strap. I'm pretty sure the strap that came with the camera or any of my cameras is probably still in the box somewhere. Maybe I threw it away. Maybe I sold it on eBay. I don't know, but don't use them, have no use for them. I think they're useless. So another great thing about this lens and the camera and some other cameras, I'll put them up there in the list, is it has synchro VR when you put them together, so that you can get 5.5 stops stabilization handheld for photo or video. And honestly, it makes video so much easier. Panning is so much easier. Aviation, wildlife, whatever, makes it so much easier. Yeah, after having this for 10 months, I don't really know what would make the lens better, especially for the price. It's like $1,700 new. Like, that's crazy. It's crazy talk. And if you want something in the 600 range that's better, you're going to be spending like 15 grand. And just as a little fun trip, I used this little 10-month review update to go to the Pittsburgh Zoo. So here we'll run through some pictures and video from the EVF, from the point of view of the camera, the whole 9 yards, and we'll just throw it in there. And if you want to skip through this, there'll be a little timeline bar at the bottom.
1, 2, 3, 4. Lunch dates and coffee breaks, Tuesdays and random days. It's how we spend the worst days of our lives. Your sister doesn't like me much. Your father thinks that I'm a nut. Your son and daughter just don't want to choose. Think it's time to get away and see. There's a big old world and it's calling you and me. Seattle's cold and I don't like New Orleans. There's a place I know would fit for you and me. Let's go to Carolina. We could start a new life. Already my best friend. Don't you be my new wife? I don't like living. You don't have much to trust in. You're scared to love again. I don't want to miss a blessing. In Carolina, Carolina. The weather's nice and the leaves still turn. We can settle down and the kids can learn that home isn't a place but a feeling. There's American pride and southern charm, Sunday school and lots of arms. We can spend the rest of our lives. Let's go to Carolina. We could start a new life. You're already my best friend, but don't you be my new wife. I don't like living. You don't have much to trust in. You're scared to love again. I don't want to miss a blessing. In Carolina, 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 Carolina. Truthfully, I don't care.
But as you can see from the zoo, it's quite the overkill setup for it, but it was very enjoyable and I had a good time. And I also really like seeing younger people, especially kids, go to the zoo and see wildlife and nature up close and personal. I don't know, I remember doing it as a kid and I still have those memories with me, so really appreciate seeing everybody out seeing all the animals and stuff at the zoo. So that's pretty much the end of it. I have no negatives on this lens. It's like my saving grace. It's my favorite lens to use, and I don't really think that's going to change anytime soon. So until next time, I'll see you out there. Best of luck. So after watching all those videos, if I missed anything, please drop me a line down below, leave a comment. I'll get back to you as soon as I can, answer any questions I might have missed, or any information I did not cover that you are interested in. So until next time, happy shooting. I'll see you out there.